Hello, BookTube. Well, obviously, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I'm having still a bit of trouble adjusting my schedule to the fact that I no longer live entirely in this little book room. And today was gorgeous. I had, Once again, I had the freedom to lay half sprawled on the couch with a cute little dog dozing in the sun right next to my head and read and write all day. And once again, I did that to the exclusion of all else. I did occasionally stop to make videos, but what difference does that make if I forget to upload them until midnight or whatever? So we'll work on it. And in no time at all, I will have this down to a pattern that works. But in the meantime, I have the week's second mail haul, so we can go through that. I have one of these mail tubs. Again, I was here all day. I was paying attention all day. I have no idea when the mailman slipped this thing onto the front porch. No idea. But here it is. So it's just 6 packages, 3 manila envelopes and 3 cardboard envelopes. So we should be through it fairly quickly. So let's see what this first one is. Oh, okay. All right, great. This is a finished copy of a book that I ended up liking. I think we've seen it already on this channel, and you have since seen it on Matthew's channel at MCS Books. This is from the great folks at Europa Editions, and it is due in early June. It's The 10 Loves of Nishino by Hiromi Kawakami. That is our author, Hiromi Kawakami. And I learned on Matthew's channel, I will leave a link to his video down below. I learned that outside of America, this is called The 10 Loves of Mr. Nishino, which I kind of like better than this. This is the book. And it's not just the title, also the cover of the non-American edition. The non-American edition is not by Europa, and looks completely different. But this is it's one of these slim new contemporary Japanese novels that there's never more than 100 pounds on them, and they are intentionally minimalist and miniaturist in their ethos. Usually very, very small, very localized things, and sometimes they bug me, and sometimes they don't. This one, I'd be curious to know. I'd be curious to sit down, in an all-night restaurant in Tokyo and talk to a group of literary muscular teenagers about what is this? What is this? But anyway, this is the author of the Nakano Thrift Shop that hit a popular nerve here in the U.S. And this is the book. Each woman in this book has succumbed, even if only for an hour, to that seductive, imprudent, and furtively feline man named Mr. Nishino, who drifted so naturally into their lives. Still clinging to the vivid memory of his warm breath and his indecipherable sentences, 10 women tell their stories as they attempt to recreate the image of the unfathomable Nishino. And yet, more than any sense of understanding of Nishino himself, these stories transmit powerful portraits of the women who tell the stories. At various moments in their lives, driven by distinct and common desires, these are thoroughly modern women and seductive storytellers in their own right. And the author, she wrote The Nakano Thrift Shop, she wrote Strange Weather in Tokyo, and a bunch of other books. And her fiction has appeared in English in the Paris Review and Granta. And she has won major awards, and she lives in Japan. And I thought this is an English language translation by Allison Markin Powell. I thought that even in English, this was really good. I really enjoyed it. The women are fairly distinct, and the storytelling gimmick never quite matches up. Of course, the model for that you always want to raise in a situation like this is Rashomon. But the narrative, the man, Mr. Nishino, never quite lines up in any of their stories. In fact, some of the discrepancies are deal killers, and you think that. And it was all very, very involving. I loved it. So I would gladly read it again. I guess this is the finished copy. So it's going to be you know, the Europa editions, they're very nice. They're solid binding. You've got the French flaps, and this will be $16. So that's a great start. Contemporary fiction. I should check and see how contemporary is this. 2003. Oh, good Lord. Come on. American translation market. We can do better than that, can't we? This thing came out in 2003, 20 years ago. Good Lord. Okay, well, anyway, 'tis new to me. So let's move on here. What is this next one? I have a totally disinterested little schnauzer. Because once again, we went on an ill-advisedly long walk. it was cool today, and bright, and I'm learning about having a full-grown adult miniature schnauzer. She's not very good in the heat, and you know, you have to remember when you taking a dog on a walk like that, even on a relatively cool day, if it's got bright, direct sunlight and it's not cold, you have to remember that humans were made to do exactly that. Humans evolved to walk for long distances in the sunlight. We have skin, we have barely any hair, or have a huge number of physiological adaptations to subvert and disperse heat. We were literally evolved to do that, more than to do almost anything else that we do. Almost all the rest of it is an add-on, but that is essential. And most animals aren't like that. and this little schnauzer is covered in hair. She's covered in hair from head to toe, and the sun is beating down on her the whole time, and she's also right near the ground. So my point being that she has the will and the energy of a dog 10 times her size, but she is prone to getting hot, even on a cool day like this. And we are both in winter shape for walking. We didn't know we were walking during the winter. So today's walk was ill-advisedly long, so she's a little bit on the pooped side. Okay, what have we got here? Oh, this is an October book from one of my favorite publishers, W.W. Norton. This is a book about poetry. This is The Mind Has Cliffs of Fall, subtitled Poetry at the Extremes of Feeling, edited by Robert Pinsky. The Mind Has Cliffs of Fall is gibberish, but maybe it's a quote from a poem. Despair, mania, rage, guilt, derangement, fantasy. Sounds like some of my marriages to Deb, or perhaps all of them. Poetry is our most intimate personal source for the urgency of these experiences. Poems get under our skin. They engage with the balm and the sting of understanding. Balm? What's that? It's kind of an elephant. It's a kind of a beast with horns. Oh, I was going to say, bring a balm around a baby? Its title is inspired by a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem. Well, there you go. One-time poet laureate Robert Pinsky gives us more than 130 poems that explore emotion at its most expansive, distinct, and profound. And of course, I love poetry from a very long tradition that doesn't want to do anything like that. It doesn't want to do anything like get under our skin or create the urgency of experience. I come from and love a tradition of poetry that doesn't want to do anything like that. So this book has 7 illuminating chapters, including The Sleep of Reason, Love and Rage, and Manic Laughter. With succinct headnotes for each poem, Pinsky leads us through the book's sweeping historical range. Chronologically presented from Shakespeare to Terence Hayes, Dante to Tracy K. Smith, each chapter shows the persistence and variation in our states of mind. Okay, all right. So it's a themed poetry anthology. Okay. Well, that's great. I haven't got a poetry anthology in the mail in a long time. So this comes out in late October, so I probably won't be getting to it right away. But it's nice to know there's poetry on the horizon when it does come. So let's see what's next here. See if we can turn up in here a finished copy of something that I can get to right away. I just cannot justify reading more than a couple of October books in May. I just can't do that, considering how many books I have to read. Okay. All right. Well, this next one is a finished copy. Boy, oh boy. Loaded with blurbs. Yeah, okay. This comes out in June. That's more like it. That's more like it. This is a finished copy of Susan Richard Shreve's More News Tomorrow. More News Tomorrow. It's a novel. The pub sheet is 10 pages long with graphs and charts, and I think a hologram with Princess Leia saying that I'm her only hope. So we'll just read from the dust jacket. On the morning of her 70th birthday, Georgiana Grove receives an unexpected letter that calls her back to Missing Lake, Wisconsin, where her mother was murdered 60 years earlier. Georgie's father has confessed to the murder the next morning and was carted off to the state penitentiary. Haunted by the night that took both her parents away and determined to unearth the truth, Georgie takes her reluctant family on what will become a dangerous canoe trip up the swollen Bone River to return to Missing Lake. A 70-year-old woman convinces her family to go on a canoe trip upriver to her hometown. Acclaimed novelist Susan Richard Shreve, celebrated for her refined explorations of parent-child relationship, according to the Washington Post, captures the tenor of the times with clarity and elegance as she follows both Georgie and her parents on parallel trips up the Bone River, weaving together the hope of June 2008 with the injustice of June 1941. Okay. All right. So it's a family saga. I don't know what all this prose is all about, but I guess I'll find out. So this comes out in June. The pub sheet does not specify when in June, but that's okay. It's a finished copy, so it's soon. I need to put it on the docket. I will be dealing with the June books this week. I have winnowed down the May shelf out in the other room. It was a mountain. It was just a mountain. Peaks and peaks and peaks of books. I winnowed it down mercilessly to a few left for the rest of May. And soon I will clear that shelf entirely of those books. I'll just put them in a stack on the floor or on a table somewhere. And then comes the grand migration as all the June books come up and get put in order. First week, second week, third week, fourth week, and fixed for all kinds of doubles and whatnot. And also the merciless arithmetic of looking at the finished product. It'll be gigantic. I'll take a picture of it for Instagram. It'll be a gigantic June, massive of books. But once you're done with that, then there comes the pitiless arithmetic of looking through it and saying, all right, well, this book, that book, this book, that book, I am not under any circumstance going to review, and I don't have anyone who could review it for me. So these books just don't make the cut. But I don't do that right away. I wait. I move everything up first, and then once June is taken care of, then on that same bookcase, all the other months have to come up. Otherwise, you get jammed up. So this will go there, and I guess in the meantime, I can look online and see if there's a specific date. It doesn't really matter. But typically, if I'm sorting and a June book, a June finished copy doesn't have a specific date, I put it as the last week in the month, and just because the first week in the month is going to be so ingrained. All right, so now we're on to cardboard. There are all these vacuum press things, so I will try not to repeat my usual imprecations. I will just chat with you about the Red Sox while I discombobulate the packages. All right, what have we got here? This is a novel of some kind. Okay, this comes out in June. This is a paperback original. Great. Okay. So what have we got here? The book is called This Is Home by Lisa Duffy. Looks like San Francisco. And who is Lisa Duffy when she's at home? Why do I know that name? Oh, she wrote The Salt House. Her previous, this is her second book. Her first novel was The Salt House, which I remember liking. This is her second novel. So in her second novel, Lisa Duffy, author of 2017's The Salt House and master interpreter of the emotional complexities of family, begs a new question. What defines home? OMG. Publicists, speakers, writers, students, opinionizers, pundits of all kinds Could you kindly stop misusing that word, please? Beg the question is not the same thing as raise the question. They are not the same thing. OMG, I am so sick of seeing those two things, of seeing the phrase begs the question misused. Somehow or other in the last 3 years, it's become absolutely endemic. This book does not beg the question of what is it, what defines home. It directly asks what defines home. It raises the question. It doesn't beg the question. Okay. Is it a physical foundation, the presence of a family, or something intangible? Characters grapple with this question in this novel, nuanced and poignant story of finding where and with whom we belong. Okay, fantastic. All right, so this is what is this set in San Francisco or not? Let's learn a little bit more about it. In the seaside town of Paradise, Massachusetts. Oh, come on. There's no town like that in Massachusetts. But okay, so we've gone from Missing Lake on the Bone River to Paradise, Massachusetts. What about a town that doesn't have a heavy-handed name? I think we can manage that. 16-year-old Libby Winters doesn't have a typical home life. She lives on the middle floor of a triple-decker house with her father, Bent. Her father's name is Bent. And their 100-pound dog, and Bent's sisters Desiree and Lucy cohabit the top floor. The pub sheet does not tell me what the dog's name is. A former student turned policeman, Bent, that's her father. His name is Bent. His parents, when he was a little baby, said, "I think we want to call you Bent." Works nights, leaving Libby under her aunt's supervision, and she wants nothing more than her independence. Quinn Ellis's idea of a perfect family has vanished along with her husband, John. Quinn Ellis is a woman. Her parents, when she was a little baby, looked at her, having been told in no uncertain terms by the delivery doctor what her gender was, and they called her Quinn. Quinn Ellis was married to a man named John. No idea what was wrong with his parents. After her husband's 2 tours in Iraq, he carries the burden of war home with him and refuses to seek help for his PTSD. After an argument one night, he disappears. Months later, when John is still gone and an eviction notice in hand, Quinn finds herself living on the bottom floor of the Winters house. Libby is skeptical of the new tenant downstairs, but soon she realizes she and Quinn aren't as different as she initially thought. As they both struggle with the often confusing realities of trauma, love, and identity, Libby and Quinn grapple with these questions. How does war change a person? What happens to loved ones left behind? What is the meaning of home? Okay, fantastic. The author lives in the Boston area with her husband and 3 children. And this comes out, I mentioned that already, right? Oh, she has, okay, so this has a list of her forthcoming reading appearances. This is going to be a trade paperback original coming out in mid-June. So that's yet more fiction. We're 3 fiction for 1 nonfiction, and the nonfiction is only barely nonfiction because it was poetry. Let's forge on. What is this next one? As soon as I'm done making confetti out of its stubbornly adhesive packaging, well, then we'll know what it is, won't we? First, I have to tear apart the packaging because it's sticking to my hands even as I tear it. It wants to everything. If I don't tear it apart, it will stick to papers, it will stick to freedom. I might throw my little schnauzer out with the garbage. Don't want that, do I? So this has to be torn apart into little pieces that cannot tear anything. Now that we're done with that, oh, fantastic. Okay, great. This is a finished copy. Again, June. Oh, that June shelf is going to be ridiculous. I'll take a picture of it. This is, I think we saw an advanced copy of this. This is Andreas Wagner, Life Finds a Way, What Evolution Teaches Us About Creativity, in its finished copy. From microscopic algae to giant redwood trees, from gut bacteria to African elephants, every single one of the millions of species alive today is the most recent link in a near-endless chain of creative achievement that goes back all the way to life's origins. Each organism hosts countless innovations, seen and unseen, from molecular machines working inside its cells to the physical architecture of its body, be it streamlined, lightning fast, camouflaged, or covered with solar panels. And it's all cooperative, too. Only a little more than a tenth of you is actually you. All the rest of it is freeloading bacteria and viruses, microorganisms of all kinds. This amazing diversity is the product of nature's creativity. And as biologist Andreas Wagner reveals in Life Finds a Way, it turns out that creativity in nature and culture follows similar fundamental principles. I wonder what that fundamental principle is. It turns out that creativity in nature and culture follows similar fundamental principles. In nature, I have no idea what principle the author is going to adhere to. In culture, it's pretty obvious that you will quote from Jurassic Park, and you'll be the 80 millionth person to do it. Wagner shows that one reason for this symmetry is the difficult problems, how to create a regular diamond lattice, an efficient predator, or complex work of art, share a fundamental property. They have myriad solutions, many of them poor, some a bit better, and a few that are really good, and a rare number that are superb. We can think of these solutions as forming a rugged mountain landscape where poor solutions correspond to low foothills and the best solutions form the highest peaks. Such landscapes are called adaptive landscapes, and although they originated in the 20th century biology, their importance goes far beyond. As Wagner argues, they are key to understanding the creative process from chemistry to culture. Okay, all right, great. The author lives in Zurich, and then the cell sheet comes with some bullet points. That biological evolution is a 4 billion year long history of innovation. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Has life been on Earth for 4 billion years? Has biology been evolving for 4 billion years? Okay, what's another bullet point here? Why any creative problem solving must traverse valleys of poor solutions to get to the highest peaks of the best solutions. Oh, that's interesting. So it sounds like he's going to map this onto, human problem solving as opposed to life finding a way. I'm not 100% wild about that analogy, though. What's bothering me about that analogy, about foothills and mountain peaks and traversing them to... Oh, of course, of course. What's bothering me about that is that evolution is blind and dumb. And if you have a mountain peak, it connotes that you want to climb that mountain peak. You want to achieve it. You want to knock it off, as Edmund Hillary would have said. And evolution no more recognizes the peaks of mountains than it does the tops of ladders or the tops of trees. All that kind of aspirational stuff is a poor reading. It's not the author's reading, I'm sure. I'm sure it's not the author's reading. But that isn't the way of it. That isn't the organizing principle at all. The idea that you have foothills and mountain peaks means that you should strive for the peaks, and evolution doesn't strive. What's another bullet point here? Artificial intelligence creates patentable innovations and pleasing musical compositions using the same creativity principles. Oh, okay. All right, so this might be a fairly wide-ranging book. Okay, and I will find out right away because this is a June release, and I am leaping into June. So now we've got one more to go, and then we'll be done. No boxes this time around, just these adhesive envelopes. That's all. That just need to be made into a mess so that they don't stick to everything else. This one's fighting me because it's sticking to itself, and it's sticking to my hand. There we go. All right, so what have we... Oh, okay, great. Oh, this is lovely. All right, good. This is going to be another June book, I just know. Yeah, June the 4th. Good Lord. This is something, I think we've seen it on this channel before. This is The Soul of Power by Cally Bates. This is the conclusion to the Waking Land series. I wonder if I have pictures of any of them. No, I don't. Well, the series was The Waking Land, The Memory of Fire, and now The Soul of Power by Cally Bates. These are quite good. these books are quite good. Let's see here. I wonder how much of this you're going to be able to get if you haven't read them, though. When we met Sophie Dunbarron in Cally Bates's riveting debut novel, The Waking Land. That was another thing. The Waking Land, the first book in this series, was a debut, and it certainly didn't read that way at all. She was standing alongside Elanna Valtai as Elanna led a rebellion against a kingdom that once held both their allegiances. After the dust settled, Sophie became a queen, the role she was groomed her whole life to fill. However, she quickly discovered that wearing a crown is quite different from keeping one. When we find Sophie again in The Soul of Power, she is the insecure monarch of a once divided and now unsteadily united country. She faces an unenviable number of challenges. Half of her court want her deposed, and the other half question her every decision. An influx of magic-bearing refugees continue to pour across the border, stretching the resources already depleted by war to the breaking point. And people all over the realm still face prejudice against magic, yet an increasing number of people are beginning to have strange dreams and exhibit magical talents, including Sophie herself. The portrayal of magic in these books is very, very good. It's very original, of magic as a kind of a social phenomenon and cultural status symbol of a good, bad, or it's extremely well thought out. When Elanna, not only her ally but the closest thing she has to a sister, is captured and taken to Pallidus, which is Sophie must navigate an increasingly thorny political maze by herself. As she makes new alliances and conquers excruciating physical tests, she discovers that she is pregnant, a secret that could destroy her tenacious hold on the crown forever. Fantastic. Okay. Although that was meant to say her tenuous hold on the crown. Well, she's tenacious too. Wow. All right. Great. I wonder if I have the first two. I don't know if I do or not. I feel certain that I kept Memory of Fire. I must have kept that. But I think we saw the second volume in this series on this channel a year ago. Now we have the third and concluding volume. Fantastic. Can't wait to see how it comes out, and I won't have to wait for long because it's June. So, all right. So that a mountain of cardboard confetti later. This is our mail haul. So we have The Soul of Power by Cally Bates, bringing a very promising 2 books to conclusion. Here's hoping that I don't hate the ending. Then Life Finds a Way, a book about all the wonders of evolution. Then This Is Home by Lisa Duffy. And More News Tomorrow by Susan Richards Shreve. Total coincidence that they're next to each other on the mail haul, but they seem very similar. They sound very similar. The Mind Has Cliffs of Fall. I don't know what fall is. I don't know how you can have a cliff of fall, but this is an anthology ranging across 2 centuries of poetry. And then the finished copy of Hiromi Kawakami's The 10 Loves of Nishino from Europa Editions. So a fairly good, interesting mix of fiction and nonfiction, with a couple of books that I need to get to right away. They will be in the massive June reorganization. It's coming up. I'm hoping that I'll have company to do it. That would be nice. But anyway, this has gone on way too long, so I'm going to wrap this up. That was our day's mail haul, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.